Good morning. Are we on Facebook? We're live. Good morning, everyone. It's 11 a.m. How are we doing?
11:01.
It's 11:01.
As usual. We should just call it the 11:01.
Everyone's used to us now, but it's coffee time. It's nice to share coffee with you guys again today. Thanks for joining. We are with our friend Steve Lee today, and we're so excited to have you with us, Steve. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Nicholas.
Yeah.
We go a long way back with Steve. We've started getting people joining on Zoom as well. Hello, if you're on Zoom watching, thanks for coming today. If you've got any questions as we chat with Steve, I'll say it now because we'll forget as we go because we'll just get carried away chatting. But if you've got any questions while we chat, please put them into Zoom or put them onto the Facebook page. You're welcome to do that. Any memories of Steve, also do that. So let's just give a quick bit of context.
I'm not that old. What's that? Memories? Any memories of the 70s?
We remember Steve.
What's going on? Is that the introduction?
Back in the old days.
The reason is we just need to say the context because we asked
like
people a couple of weeks ago. We said, who should we get on to our 11 a.m. because we want to chat with you. People are getting a bit bored of us, so we thought let's invite some other people.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
And immediately we had one person come back, and Sam, and say, we'd love to see that bald guy who did escapology. We went, we know the man. Let's ask him.
Yeah.
Here he is. It was Steve. So
yeah,
what was
Bruce
that
Willis.
about? So why are you the man that used to do escapology? How would she know you, Steve? What did you used to do?
Well, I'll tell you what, I mean, some people are probably watching and thinking Bruce Willis has aged really well. That's what they're thinking.
Right. No, it's don't get your gun.
Sorry,
out
what was
back,
the
right?
question?
So tell us why you're being remembered as the person from Escapology. What did you used to come and do in Leeds?
It's probably it needs a bit of an explanation. So I run a Christian charity called Miracle Street, which was really based around the encounter that I had with God and my desire to make it relevant to people who didn't really get church and the whole Jesus thing. So the straitjacket thing really came about 30 odd years ago, where I basically thought, if you're going to talk about a message of freedom, probably doing it in a straitjacket is quite a cool thing to do. Yeah. So that was it. That was how it all started.
Free.
We did Leeds City Centre.
Did it always work? Did you always get free? Did you ever have a mate where
do you know what? Do you know what? I got stuck in it last summer. So I'm 55 now, okay? And really I was doing that when I was a lot younger and a lot lighter. And so somebody said to me, do you still get out of a straitjacket? And I said, I don't know if I could get in it. But I thought, well, I'll give it a go, because it was, there's an organisation called CAP, which you guys will know about. It stands for Christians Against Poverty. And I'm quite involved in that. And we did this big lunchtime event with loads of kids. And I mean, it was really like an old street event that I used to do, but like in a building. It was fairly wild. And I thought, I've got to do something that's just a little bit more than standing up with a microphone and telling one of my very interesting stories. So I thought, I'll just come out of retirement, I'll give it a go. Nick, it was a disaster. I mean, somebody fastened me in it, and I thought I was going to black out. I mean, I just couldn't do it, and I just felt so embarrassed by the whole thing. But then I talked about how sometimes the things that we don't think are going to tie us up in our lives actually do. So I turned it. I mean, it was
around.
And the other time I got stuck in it was in Leeds. I mean, I've only
No.
just remembered it, but I did get stuck on it. And we used to do these big events on Temple Newton Park, like 27 years ago. We did it. I've still got the photos, like a static audience of like 1,000 people, and maybe I'll tell you about that in a minute. But I remember getting stuck in a box in one of those events because I couldn't get that out of handcuffs. I mean, so yeah, there have been a few disasters along the way.
Oh no, that is brilliant though. Makes it all fun though. So tell us about what you. Yes, you used to come up. So Linda, I was not in Leeds at the time. I was
you were probably at primary school.
I was in nappies. No, I'm not that young.
Yeah.
So
you
Linda
don't sound like a local.
You used to come up. Accents. I was saying this the other day. I can never mimic people because I can't do accents.
I'm losing you now. I don't know if it's you, mate. I'm losing you. You're frozen.
It was just us.
Maybe, yeah.
Are we back?
Oh yeah, you're back. You're back. You're back.
How's it? We look frozen on as well. You see, you pay for super fast, super fandangled broadband, and what do you get?
No.
Nothing.
No.
Nothing. Anyway, it's better on their data, isn't it? Right. So,
we'll try and we'll see how it's going.
Let's keep going. Are you?
Yeah, he's blinking.
Are you hearing us?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
When it catches up.
Oh no, it's right.
It was like 93. Like, when did you first come to Leeds?
Yeah, 90. Yeah, I probably before that, to be honest, Linda. Yeah. I was coming to to Dayspring Church in Garforth probably from about 89, and Kippax or Kippux. Yeah. So I was involved probably not at 89, but we started to do the big events 93. Yeah, I think we did 2 summers or maybe even 3. Yeah. So it was a sort of a mobile circus roadshow event with big escapes and, you know, illusions and sawing people in half, you know, normal Christian stuff. And then using that as a way of just, you know, engaging with families and people, like I say, who probably aren't used to going to church, but probably believe in God, because most people do. So that's really what it was all about. And Leeds was so significant for me. And obviously, you know, been friends with you guys for a long time. So yeah, it's a bit like a second home, really. Yeah.
So tell us a bit about that. Why was Leeds a significant moment for you as well?
Well, I mean, some of the things I was doing in the late 80s and early 90s were what I was doing nationally. But the Temple Newsome events, I guess everyone who's listening who's local will know about that. So big amphitheatre there in Temple Newsome Park, a few miles from Garforth. So that, for me, I often describe it as the cradle of what I then ended up doing for the last 25 years. They were just such a significant moment for me. And I realized how, you know, we could reach outdoor audiences on a large scale, all age, which has always been my passion, and genuinely entertain people, but you know, also ask some pretty big questions about the meaning of life, you know, and I think people have those questions. So yeah, I mean, it just massive for me, you know, huge moment for me, those events. And some of the guys are still with me that
and they've obviously
on those times.
Right, okay. Like Ali, is he still with you? He was
Ali. Yeah,
he's still
with
you.
Yeah,
he's come with you to the bracket. So but it's obviously, you know, what's great and what I love what you do is you always make things memorable. And I think the fact that, you know, even just as one example, that someone popped up and said, you can get that guy. I don't know how many sermons people remember and all that.
I'm just losing you again, Nick. I can't hear you, mate. Sorry, really frozen.
Oh, why is it playing up today?
Tell you what we'll do. Let's go on to
Can you link?
I'll go on to this, see if this is better.
With
Bear with. Are we still live? We're still going across, is it?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
yeah, we've taken
Is that
it.
better?
Yep, yep.
Good. So what I was saying, Steve, is what I love is that what you do is so memorable and relevant as well, but particularly the memorable thing. And I think that's something, you know, that actually you should be really proud of, because the fact that someone was like, oh, can you get that guy that used to do that escapology? And, you know, there's something that really visually stands out as well.
Yeah.
And actually that's a moment people then remember for forever, you know, rather than just something, you know, you always present in a way it's very memorable, and I really love that. So it's
Thanks,
really great.
mate.
And then you came
Thank
up
you.
and started doing some of our carols events when we started at Baraka on a high street. We did a big blow stage on the high street. And tell
so
us
that was the first shot, wasn't it? The one over the road.
Yeah.
Out
That
the
was
front.
12 years ago, I'd say, when we first
No.
And we put out a massive, we took over the shop next door's frontage as well, and just
I remember. Yeah.
And it snowed.
It was freezing. It was like -8.
And we were really grateful to have you. And then from memory, you couldn't get home or something, and it was your daughter's birthday.
Well, do you know what? I mean, that was I know it was 12 years ago. I remember it, and it was quite interesting because I'd just come back from Madrid, so I'd come from 20 degrees. It was a freak winter in Madrid, and I literally the following day we were in like -6 or something.
Yeah, it was.
And we couldn't get back, and it was a weird time because I eventually did get back, and I missed my daughter's birthday. My daughter's birthday's on Christmas Eve, and so I remember it really well. It was the 23rd of December, so it was I mean it was odd. So my daughter would have been, I mean she's 20 now, so she was 8 or whatever. So yeah, I mean I do remember that. And Ali, who you just talked about, he sort of drove the truck back, and I think I flew the following day or something, didn't I?
You flew to get there as quick as you could. It was all. But you still came back to see us again, which we were very grateful for. Yeah. I brought some extra clothing and the sleeping bag the next time. Yeah. So tell us what you've been transitioning to, because you've started doing. Obviously, you used to do a lot more events and the Escapology. So you tried it again last year, and then you've started doing certainly a lot more online and video. Things. How has that kind of developed, and what have you moved to doing more in that kind of creative way that you have?
Well, to be honest, Nick, I mean, I don't feel like I'm doing anything any different. I think the message that I seek to carry is exactly the same. But obviously when I joke about it, but when I was a lot younger, I mean, the whole magic, escapes, illusions was massive for me. And I also did it professionally. So I did children's entertainment professionally to earn money and fund the other stuff that I couldn't earn money from. And then I got to 50 and I felt God speak to me. I know that's a little odd for people who probably are listening who aren't used to all of that, you know, hearing voices and that kind of thing. But you know, I'm a Christian, and I do feel God led me, and what I found He showed me was that I was all about communicating indoors and outdoors, but now I needed to move to add online to that. And I don't think I could ever have imagined what it would mean. I mean, so I started doing this thing called Big Story, which essentially are very simple 5-minute presentations of the message of Jesus. But because I have a great love of history, we started to film them with an historical story or an iconic background. So it's just taken me all over the place, really. We were due to go to New York just before the lockdown to film with the Manhattan skyline and the stories around Times Square and the Rockefeller Center, Statue of Liberty. So they're all scripted, and we will go and do it. So when the lockdown came, I just was really grateful to God that I found I was ahead of the curve and further on than I would have been if I hadn't spent 3 years doing that. So in the last 28 days, we've had over 5 million reach on Facebook globally, and,
Yes.
and we've got,
Say,
you know, literally hundreds of thousands of people engaging with it, and it's a greater shock to me than anybody probably that.
Yeah.
And I think it probably confirms my feeling that I've always had, that actually people are really open to hear, you know, about God, but probably like me years ago, a bit of a hang up when it came to the church, you know, because it was all a little bit dull and unimaginative, shall we say.
Yeah.
So
And
so I do a lot online now.
Tell us about your links with, because you do talk a lot about war as well, don't you? And you've done a lot of like kind of events and things around the landings and in France, haven't you? And how does that begin? Is that something slightly different, or is that still?
Well, I mean, as I said, I had a passion for history, and I'm a bit of a geek when it comes to World War II history. You know, it's kind of like I've always known a lot about it, and you know, I could probably go on mastermind on the D-Day landings. You know, I'm a bit, I sort of know where bizarre tank battles happened in fields and stuff like that. So, you know, it was really, and then I started to understand that there is certain freedom that only exists on the other side of sacrifice, and that's quite central to what the Christian message is all about. So I thought, you know what, I think I can tell these stories into the culture, but also to use that as a way of asking some big questions. So I take a lot of guys, particularly to the Normandy beaches. I create sort of overnight excursions to the landing beaches, but I also tell some of my big stories around some of the key battle sites and the stories, particularly of conflict. And as I've gone to places like Normandy and Arnhem, and you know, lots of places in Germany as well, I've understood that there's almost like an imprint that is caused by a catastrophic loss of life. So you know, there's a lot of you know, depression. There's a lot of crime in certain places that have been bombed out, and it's really fascinating to observe that, you know. And even if you don't have a Christian narrative, it does seem like when there is great suffering, there is great pain that exists beyond that. So yeah, so I go to those places and I help to strengthen churches, and use the stories as a way of communicating, you know, the reality of a peace that can be found, which is greater than what the world can offer. So that's the sort of narrative that I live in, I guess. Yeah.
I love it. And then is that how, because I know we keep in touch over the time, although you haven't been up to these for a while, and I know when there was the big migrant camp in Calais, was that kind of, did you get connected to that initially through those connections of the church you worked with from the lands, or was that completely wild card?
Not really, to be honest.
To tell us how
that. Well, yeah, I mean, I'll be really brief, but I mean, we have a big truck, a mobile stage, which is not the one that we had up at Baraka, but 10 times the size. It's a big 30-ton Arctic.
Wow.
And we had that in Europe anyway, because we'd done a lot of stuff in Spain. And it was in Caen, which is the port city, the other side of Portsmouth, 3 hours from Calais. And again, it was another one of those sort of God moments, you know, if you can sort of, you know, if I can use that expression, where I just felt God speak to me that I just needed to make a really positive and practical response to the migrant crisis in Calais, in the northern port of Calais. So we just went for it. So we took the truck right into the heart of the camp. We got permission to do it, and we set up a permanent base right in the center of the Calais jungle, and we had a lot of national media kind of covering it. And really what we were doing, I mean, we weren't sort of forcing Bibles down people's throats. You know, we were charging hundreds of mobile phones. We worked with a Dutch telecom company, and we were we were putting a 4G signal out across the camp, 10,000 people living there at that time.
Wow.
And it was just a way of practically demonstrating to people, most of whom were Muslim, either culturally or ethnically Muslim or practicing Muslims, that you know, Christians love Muslims. That people matter whatever they believe, you know. And it was really not about us sort of trying to proselytize them into what we believe, but just really to demonstrate in a very simple, practical way that we just believe God loves people, and so it was life changing for us, and I hope it was for others. I think it was. But I mean, so many stories I could tell you. I don't know if you want to hear them, but I mean, you know, stories of incredible encounters that we had with people.
Yeah, tell us what you were
saying. It changed my life.
Yeah, you said that you were profoundly impacted around the hospitality part of it.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about that.
Well, one of the things that made me and others really angry was the way that the British media presented the way in which the Calais jungle was operating. So, you know, what they were interested in really was presenting pictures of, you know, guys on the roofs of trucks and in the Channel Tunnel and all of that kind of stuff. And when you're involved in these things, and I think everybody knows this anyway, but when you're involved in something, you realize that there's a political narrative in the media that's not actually very accurate, and I think we all know that now. But what was really distressing is that there were maybe 30 to 50 guys who slept during the day, and at night they were trying to get to England. But while that was going on, 10,000 other people were sleeping in their tents. You know, and it just was not the reality. We were dealing with suffering, displaced, innocent victims of conflict, and there was one time where I was walking through the camp, and we were in the area before the south side was culled and destroyed. The ethnic groups were very clustered around communities. So there was an Afghan area, a Syrian area, a Sudanese, and I was walking through the Afghan area, and this guy basically beckoned me over and he said, you know, come and eat. And me and a few others that was there, I was showing people around, and we sat with these Afghans, and we ate with them. And this one guy said to me, that guy has been cooking that pot of food all morning, but he wouldn't eat it until somebody would share it with him. And so he was constantly inviting, and we happened to be the people that said yes, and we went in. Yeah, I mean, I feel quite emotional talking about some of these stories, because then you know, it actually makes you want to be quite vocal back in the UK about, you know, some of the, you know, the constructs that are created. Now I'm not so naive as to say that there wasn't trouble in the camp. There was trouble in the camp, but I've worked in some of the toughest environments in the UK, and I would say, and people on my team who stayed there, including Alistair, who you referenced earlier, lived there on the truck for 6 months. Wow. Incredible guy. He said to me, he said, I feel safer here than at many other places that I've lived in the UK.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a huge journey for me. You know, it really was. You know.
Amazing. Yeah. And we'd love to chat for hours, but obviously we'll keep moving on to other things as well.
Yeah.
Time. But it's really great to hear.
So good.
I think it's so important to remember, you know, basically it's about people, isn't it, more than anything?
Oh.
You know, all of the things here are about people. And, you know, we can just do our little bit as well.
Yeah. And I think, you know, the current climate we're living in, you know, post the George Floyd killing, you know, again, I think it's a similar thing. I think people are asking questions and facing their own prejudices that we all carry, because we're all fed information all the time. I read once, someone said, you know, many people think they are thinking when they are merely rearranging their prejudices. You know, and I found that really challenging at that time and now as well.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So tell us, because I was going to say, how's lockdown been for you, and what these last few weeks? And what's been going on?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably like a lot of people, there's a slightly guilty response where you kind of say, you know, there's parts of it that have been amazing for us. You know, I've got my kids are 20, 18 and 15. They're normally like, most people have got kids my age, not my age, but my kid's age. Who's got a kid who's 55. You know, they're all sort of doing everything, and then suddenly you're thrown together, and there's a sort of a rhythm that you suddenly find, and that's been amazing. So my youngest son is a highboard diver for GB, so he travels a lot. My daughter lives in London, she's at uni, and my son is just left college. So we're all together, but probably the big thing, I mean, my wife has got 2 Jamaican parents. She grew up in inner city Manchester, and so our kids are biracial. So you know, when this whole kind of storm of, you know, the big racial issue, the questions, the crisis that landed on the back of the senseless killing of George Floyd in America, it created a tipping point, as we all know, where, you know, really I think it was just one black life too many, and it created a reaction in the culture which was necessary. So, you know, as you can imagine, that has created massive amounts to process for us as a family. Where I as a white English guy, married to my wife for nearly 30 years, I suddenly realized that I know next to nothing of what the world looks like through black eyes. And so it's been a very painful journey. There's been incredible moments of life in it all as well. But so lockdown, I think for me, will always be remembered and defined for me as that time that happened, you know, a month or 6 weeks into it, that created a huge journey for us as a family.
And that's pretty interesting, I guess, that so you were all together as a family because of lockdown.
Yeah.
Why? So actually then to have more time together in that moment, it's probably really helpful for all of you as well. And processing and journeying. And I know.
Yeah, and all the other stuff as well that we've all faced. You know, the fear, you know, the uncertainty. You know, out of 5 of us, you know, there's three of us are asthmatic. You know, and so you live with this kind of, you know, gosh, you know, what is, you know, how close is this going to come to my front door? You know, and so there can be probably a bit of selfishness that can come with that as well. Yeah. That maybe we all have to face, that we, you know, ultimately there's a self-preservation instinct in us that sometimes we've got to push through, not unwisely, but I guess we all process times like this, don't we? Everyone who's watching probably will have, you know, it will trigger their own kind of feelings of, this is what it's meant for me as well. So
yeah, really good.
It's really good, really good. And no quick answers to lots of things, but I think in some ways that's quite healthy, isn't it? Not to have quick answers, to try and there's no quick fixes to things, but the fact that there seems to be momentum with journeying and people taking seriously, particularly the Black Lives Matter now, I think is a really good thing. And I'm excited. And I saw Lorraine being interviewed by head of Pioneer work the other day, and she did so well. She was just great to hear. And you know, we just need to make sure this doesn't get forgotten, doesn't it? And help shift our culture massively.
Definitely.
So thanks for your honesty.
Thank you, Steve.
And it's good to have you. It's really good to catch up. Really good. Love hearing from you. Love hearing your stories. And we love what you do.
Thank you, Nick.
Keep it up. Keep going. Have we got any comments or questions? I know Bernie Fell said something in Spanish.
She's in Spain now, but she
Buenos dias.
She says, Steve was one of the people who encouraged me greatly, especially with Kids Club. I love working with him. So lots of great comments. People
never forget those days, Bernie. Loads of love.
Yeah, no, everyone's just loving it and could listen to you for hours. So you can carry on.
Amazing.
I mean, I'm really, really very interesting. I mean, I can sound, and also I'm a lot more handsome than I appear when you visually look at me. It's really...
Of course.
Oh, dear.
Thanks, mate. We're gonna log off now and say bye to everyone.
Really
so
time.
Good to see
really
you guys.
good chat. We will be back tomorrow, everyone, at 11 a.m. for some coffee tasting of subscriptions. It's a Kenya this week, Kenya this month even. Wow. So that is going to be good. See you tomorrow at 11.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
Bye, everyone. Bye, Linda. Bye, Nick.